Hi there, folks. This is Sam Price, and I'm here for another episode of Probate Notes. And on this podcast episode, I have a really good treat for us. I have my good friend Megan Hunter here from High Conflict Institute. I love the tagline, the missing piece. And Megan is going to talk to us about high conflict resolution. Thank you for being here today, Megan.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it so much.
Well, can you tell me a little bit about you and how you got into doing what you do?
Oh, the nutshell version
Yeah.
is family law background. I'm not a lawyer, but have an MBA, and being in the family law system, understood pretty quickly that there were a lot of broken areas of the system. And after talking to family court judges, family court attorneys, just all the stakeholders, realizing that they all had this common problem, and it was high conflict divorce cases. They were back in court a lot. They were resistant to settlement, just generally were problematic and were looked at as high conflict families, where in reality you look at the data and it's pretty much one person, probably with a high conflict personality, that's driving the problem. So I just kind of made it my mission to figure out what was going on with these the people involved in these cases. Why are they high conflict? And I came across the writings and work of a man named Bill Eddy out of San Diego, and he just kind of put some pieces together and it made sense. So after a while, we started High Conflict Institute. We've been training in all areas of law and business and families and you name it.
What is an example of an ear statement?
So for someone that's in that more fear of abandonment or fear of being ignored, giving them empathy and attention statements is warranted. So it might be, "That sounds really hard," which it's not that many words, but
It's that simple, Megan?
it's
Is it
simple. It's
really
simple.
that easy? Okay.
I know
That
it is,
sounds really
because
hard.
that touches here. So what you're basically doing is you're pairing that person's brain to to be ready to receive the information you have to give it next. Okay? I'm not taking that phone call. I'm not gonna talk to him. I'm not gonna accept that proposal. Look, I know this is a really challenging case, and I know this has been a really hard path for you to take. There's difficult road. Right there, that's empathy, attention. It's I've made it about that person because they need it to be about them right then. So
Mhm.
that's the thing you're gonna replace your logic, your explanation, all that, and this is what you're going to do first before you get to those things. Um, and we'll talk about how to guide them into those conversations, but this is what you do first. If it's someone more along the narcissistic antisocial path, you're going to use more respect and not empathy, because with empathy, they'll often find think of it as a vulnerability in you, a weakness in you, and manipulate you with that. So instead, we give respect statements. So an example of that would be, I you've done a ton of work to help me get to this point on your case. I really respect what you've done here. They're like, all right, that's what I've been craving. Just a little respect,
Mm.
right? So
Wow.
now the resistance comes down, and you have to be authentic about it, right? And honest
As
about it.
best you can.
But yeah, so it's basically that.
What would be an example of how you give the choices, options, or proposals?
Okay. So yeah, good job. You went right straight into cop.
Okay,
And
so
that's my cop. Yeah. So
I thought
we
you said
started there.
that's what you said. No,
Yeah.
wait, first you give the ear statement.
Yep.
Oh, that must be really hard. And
It
then now that they kinda de-escalated, now you
Yep.
could start to talk about problem solving.
Yeah, and it's just real quick. It's just, yeah, it sounds really hard. So let's talk about our options here. And you keeping your tone of voice calm, right? Because you don't escalating your voice just escalates them because their brain's just wanting to defend itself.
Mhm.
It doesn't trust you. So just stay calm, remain ambivalent about what their choices are, right? If you try to push too hard, um, people get scared off, right? Because it's rubbing up against their fear. So go back to this, just keeping it simple. E.A.R, that sounds really hard. Or I respect what you've done here. Now we shift
It's awesome.
into, yep, we have some choices to make. So let's figure out what the options are. A, B, C. So does one of these sound, like a reasonable choice, reasonable path for you? If so, which one would that be? And so you're just guiding down this path. And the other choice or option there is to ask them for a proposal. And this really is so powerful because these folks are generally kind of the most forceful and loudest in the room. Even if they're a quiet person, they are loud with what they want. And what they want is often driven by the all or nothing and all of that. So once you've analyzed some options, then you can say, well, do you have a proposal? What's your proposal? That stimulates something in this logic brain that now gets them focused on something structured. What's your proposal? They feel good because you're asking them. And number two, they're having to reach into their mind to come up with that proposal. And then you can analyze that proposal with them, like to reality test it. Right? Because sometimes, because these are feeling and fear driven personality types, they're not always thinking about the consequences of their actions. And so that's where you can kind of reality test, like, well, that's an interesting proposal. I've had some other clients who've taken similar approaches, and I have to tell you, it didn't end so well. So I'm wondering, is there another way you could frame that proposal? Or, you'd have to use your words and your processes, but it's like that. So the goal being, someone's escalating, they're complaining, they're blaming. You're going to use E.A.R to get them down. And then once they're de-escalated, now we're going to get them focusing on options, making choices, making proposals, refining proposals, and educating them about the consequences of their proposals.
Now, when you're setting limits, do you tell the other person what limits you're setting, or do you just in your own mind you're setting limits?
Yeah, this is the kind of the tricky one because it's the scary one, right? I
Mm.
mean, we expect others around us to behave by the same set of societal rules, right? And so it feels uncomfortable to set limits on someone else's behavior. But the high conflict brain is in that crisis fight or flight mode, and it's just not stopping itself. So it's going to do these things that are all or nothing, being resistant, being demanding, um, doing things that are just entirely unreasonable, right? And trying to get away with it. So setting limits, comes in many different forms. One is in your firm, in your practice, you should have very firm and clear policies. Your forms must be very clear and about closing loopholes that people are going to go through. So you think of the worst possible scenario and you create policies to circumvent that. Because when you go to enforce a policy, to set a limit, you're going to use a policy, a law, a regulation, a court order, a court rule, whatever, right? So you make your limit setting something external to the person. So
Ah,
it's
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's key. Our policies require us to, blah, blah, blah. Our office hours are like on our website and on the sheet that you signed, say
Mhm.
8 to 5. Because remember, their brain's like rapid fire going, he's my lawyer. He should be available all the time. I'm paying him, right? So that's one form is just always having all your loopholes closed, but always make limit setting about something that's in black and white. Okay. And then sometimes we have to impose consequences. So we call this one slick, right?
Slick?
Slick. Conflict solutions, that's a new acronym for us. So
Okay.
setting limits and imposing consequences. So setting the limit is um, not necessarily telling someone stop doing that, which you might have to if someone's being disruptive or whatever. But it's more like, someone's pounds their fist on the table during your meeting. Um, you can say, knock it off. But the high conflict brain is probably going to get upset and maybe leave the room or cause you a lot of problems. So instead, you say, we have a policy that, you know, we don't bang our fist on the table during a settlement conference. Um, so if it happens again, we'll have to figure something out. Then it happens again.